You've been praying for breakthrough, crying out for deliverance, begging God to move. And when he finally snatched you out of what was breaking you, you started looking back like it was better than it was. We do that, don't we? God pulls us out of the pit, and somehow we miss the chains that held us there. But I came to tell somebody today, stop trying to return to the very thing God rescued you from. When God pulls you out, it's because your destiny was never meant to live in your history. You cannot step into promised land faith while holding on to wilderness thinking. The chapter is over. The door is closed. The grace for that season has expired. And if God has pulled you out, then trust Him enough not to crawl back in. When we say deliverance isn't a detour, it's direction, we're talking about the divine redirection that happens when God steps into your life and interrupts the path you thought you were supposed to be on. Most of us don't plan deliverance. We don't wake up saying, God, shake up my whole life today. We plan comfort. We plan routine. We plan what feels familiar. Deliverance shows up when God says, I'm not going to let you live beneath who I created you to be. And He shifts you, sometimes forcefully, from a place you were settling into. And because we didn't choose it, because it messes with our vision, our comfort, even our pride, we often misunderstand it. We treat deliverance like it was a mistake, a disruption, a side road that threw us off course, when in truth, it is the course. It is God saying, this was the exit. This was the turn. This is the way. The problem is when you've been walking one way for so long, forward doesn't feel like forward anymore. It feels like loss. It feels like confusion. And so you think, did I mess up? Did I miss it? Should I go back? But deliverance always looks confusing before it looks clear. Think about how God operates. He didn't take Israel out of Egypt and straight into comfort. He didn't say, here's the shortcut. No, He took them the long way, the unfamiliar way, the scary way, the way that looked like wandering. Not because He didn't know where He was going, but because they didn't yet know who they were becoming. Sometimes God has to lead you through what feels like wilderness so He can break the mindset of slavery off of you. You can't arrive to the promise thinking like a prisoner. And here's the part that stings a little. Sometimes we call a place home only because we got used to surviving there. When God delivers you, He's not trying to embarrass you, punish you, or inconvenience you. He's trying to free you from cycles, free you from small thinking, free you from relationships that look like support but are actually anchors, free you from environments where you learn to shrink, free you from versions of yourself you outgrew. But freedom feels scary when you've only known bondage. So when God starts to move you, you start questioning Him instead of the environment He pulled you out of. You say, why would you take me from this job? Why would you pull me from that relationship? Why would you end that season? But God is saying, why would you rather live stuck than live stretched? Deliverance stretches you. It shakes loose your comfort and forces you to trust that God sees what you cannot. And sometimes He has to get you uncomfortable, because as long as you're too comfortable, you won't move. If you could see the destination, you'd run toward it. But God hides certain things so you'll learn to follow His voice and not your own understanding. See, if you keep thinking deliverance is a detour, you'll waste time trying to undo what God has done. You'll be standing in freedom wishing for captivity. You'll be praying for a blessing to return to what was actually bondage. Some of us don't need new doors. We just need to stop trying to pry open the ones God already shut. When God delivers you, The people who were tied to your old season may fall away. Opportunities that once made sense may close. Certain habits won't feel the same. Your spirit shifts. Your appetite changes. And you may look around and say, nothing makes sense anymore. But God is saying, good, now you'll let me lead you. Deliverance doesn't always look spiritual at first. Sometimes it looks like rejection, like betrayal, like losing what you thought you couldn't live without. Sometimes it looks like heartbreak, a closed chapter, or a door that won't open no matter how hard you push. But rejection can be direction. Loss can be protection. The thing that fell apart may have been the thing that was collapsing your calling. Deliverance has never been about convenience. It's about alignment. God isn't trying to reroute you back to the familiar. He's trying to guide you into the future He designed for you before you even took your first breath. When God delivers you, it means there's somewhere better, even if you don't see it yet. Somewhere healthier, somewhere brighter, somewhere where you can breathe again. Somewhere where your purpose isn't suffocating. And if you're still grieving the exit, that's okay. Change hurts, growth aches, but don't mistake pain for wrong direction. Birthing always comes with pressure. Deliverance is God opening the womb of your destiny and pushing you into what you didn't know you needed. So breathe through it. Trust Him in it. Don't romanticize Egypt just because the wilderness feels unfamiliar. Don't run back to chains because they feel custom fit. God didn't pull you out to lose you. He pulled you out to lead you. Deliverance isn't the end of the story. It's the doorway to it. And if God brought you out, your only job now is to walk forward, even if your legs are trembling. Keep moving. Your promised land isn't behind you, it's in front of you. Nostalgia can be spiritual sabotage. That sentence looks harmless at first, like a cute little reminder not to dwell on the past too much, but it is a warning. Nostalgia is sneaky. It dresses itself like comfort, memory, warmth, but sometimes it is a trap. It can make you crave a season God already delivered you from. It can make you act like the past was paradise when you know good and well you cried your way through it. There is something about the human heart that loves to polish old pain, to put a glossy filter on a chapter that nearly broke us, and call it the good old days. When you are tired or uncertain or stretching into a future you cannot yet see, your mind will try to pull you backward. That is the danger. Nostalgia feels sweet, but it can be the rope that drags you back into bondage. The Israelites did it. Freed from slavery, miracles still fresh in their eyes, promise waiting for them, yet they cried for the onions and garlic of Egypt like seasoning was worth more than freedom. They forgot the whips. They forgot the chains. They remembered flavor and forgot pain. Sound familiar? We do the same thing. God delivers us from toxic relationships and we start scrolling old photos like suddenly the arguments and disrespect went away. God pulls us from a job where our soul was suffocating, and we start thinking maybe the stress was not so bad. God removes us from a friend group that drained us, and suddenly we miss the chaos. That is nostalgia working undercover as longing. It makes you edit history until bondage looks like comfort. When life gets uncomfortable, your flesh will try to take the wheel and drive you back to what God brought you out of. It will whisper, go back. At least there you knew who you were. At least there you understood the rules. At least there you fit. But fitting in is not the same thing as flourishing. Survival is not the same thing as destiny. Sometimes nostalgia is not about missing the past. It is about fearing the unknown. When God calls you forward, He does not always give instructions or timelines. There are seasons where heaven says move, and that is all you get. No blueprint, no comfort map, just movement and trust. That is where nostalgia tries to creep in. It says, this new place feels strange. Go back where it was predictable, even if predictable meant pain. The past is familiar, so it feels safe, but safe is not always holy. Safe can be stagnant. Safe can be spiritually asleep. Safe can be the coffin where your growth goes to die. Nostalgia can sabotage your calling by making you comfortable with captivity. It can convince you to trade progress for memory, purpose for familiarity. It takes emotional courage to say, it was what it was, but I am not going back. Not every memory deserves to be a destination. Some seasons were meant to be passed through, not parked in. That relationship might have had sweet moments, but it was still breaking your spirit. That job may have paid well, but it was suffocating your purpose. That version of you may have been confident, but it was built on coping mechanisms. God is dismantling so you can learn to stand on real identity and not performance. Nostalgia will make you swear you lost something precious, when in truth you escaped something dangerous. You cannot afford to romanticize a prison just because the walls were painted pretty. Be honest. Some things felt good but were killing you slowly. Some people were comforting but controlling. Some environments hyped you but never helped you heal. Nostalgia does not care about your destiny. It only cares about your comfort. That is why you have to be intentional. Do not let your feelings lead your faith. Nostalgia is not always a sign you miss the past. Sometimes it is a sign you have not fully embraced what God is doing in your present. You are grieving familiarity, not quality. You are grieving predictability, not peace. You are grieving what was known, not what was healthy. When you feel nostalgia pulling at you, pause and ask, do I miss the past or do I miss feeling sure? Growth rarely feels sure. Healing is messy. Becoming new feels awkward. God will sometimes strip away everything familiar so you learn to cling to Him and not your own understanding. You cannot enter a promised land with yesterday's cravings dominating your spirit. If you keep looking back, you cannot fully move forward. Pay attention to your thoughts. Watch the moments where struggle hits and suddenly the old life looks desirable again. That is a sign you are closer to breakthrough than you think. The enemy always wants you to doubt right before destiny unfolds. Remember Lot's wife. She did not turn to salt because she looked back out of curiosity. She looked back with attachment. Nostalgia was her downfall. The city was burning, but she still longed for it. God was saving her, but she grieved escape. Think about that. She was mourning what God was rescuing her from. How many times have we done the same? Do not let a memory steal your miracle. Do not let familiar chains feel like home. Do not let longing lie to you. Everything good is not godly, and everything familiar is not safe. Sometimes God will withhold the feeling of comfort so He can secure the reality of freedom. And here is the beautiful part. The future God has for you is not only better, it is fuller. It has joy that does not require compromise, peace that does not depend on pretending, love that does not drain you, purpose that does not shrink you. Nostalgia can only pull you back to what was. Faith pulls you forward to what will be. You do not need the past to feel secure when you have God going ahead of you, clearing roads you cannot see yet. Honor the past, thank God for what it taught you, but refuse to worship it. You are not who you were. You do not belong where you used to be. Nostalgia may knock, but you do not have to open the door. Keep moving. The blessing is in front of you, not behind you. God closes doors we would keep walking through, not because He wants to frustrate us, not because He enjoys seeing us confused or standing outside something we thought was meant for us, but because He sees danger where we see desire. We are creatures of habit. We cling to what is familiar, even if it is failing us. We mistake access for approval, thinking that just because a door once opened easily, it means it should always be open. But God, in His mercy, will shut what we refuse to surrender. He will close what we would keep choosing, not realizing it was slowly destroying us. Some doors looked like opportunities but were really traps. Some doors led to comfort but not calling. Some doors fed our ego but starved our soul. And because we don't always know the difference in the moment, God will close them for our protection. And that's where the tension begins. We don't like shut doors. We don't like unanswered prayers or unfinished plans or relationships that don't work even though we poured hope and dreams into them. We like certainty. We like to feel in control. So when God closes a door, instead of trusting, we often push harder. We jiggle the handle, we beg, we knock like our lives depend on going backward instead of forward. And when it still won't open, we start questioning our value, our direction, even God's goodness. But hear me. Closed doors are not rejection, they're redirection. They're protection. They're divine boundaries saying, you can go anywhere, but not there, not anymore. Think about the doors you tried to force in your life. The ones that look good on the outside, but drain the life out of you inside. The relationship you thought would complete you, but instead complicated your peace. The job you swore you needed, but it stole your joy, your time, your identity. If that door had stayed open, if you had gotten everything you thought you wanted, would you even recognize yourself today? Some blessings are disguised as breakups. Some miracles come disguised as missed opportunities. God knows when you are about to settle for less than what He created you for. And a closed door is sometimes the only language we will listen to. We pray, Lord, guide me. But the moment His guidance looks like denial, we start doubting. We say, God, open the right doors, but we forget that means He must shut the wrong ones too. And here's what hits deeply. Sometimes the door isn't bad, it's just not your door anymore. It served a season. It taught you something. It built you, stretched you, matured you. That doesn't mean you were supposed to stay there forever. Growth demands movement. Elevation requires exits. There are rooms you have outgrown and you can't breathe in them like you used to. The conversation has changed. The atmosphere has shifted. The grace for that space has expired. And if God didn't close that door, you might stay until you suffocated the calling inside you. Closed doors push us into places we never would have gone willingly. They ignite creativity. They stretch faith. They force us to choose trust over nostalgia and obedience over comfort. Sometimes God shuts the door because what is next requires solitude, not applause. Sometimes He closes the door because He needs to detox your environment before He upgrades your assignment. You can't carry old noise into new seasons. You can't bring every voice with you. The wrong counsel can sabotage right calling. Some people had access to you only because the season allowed it. When God shifts you, access changes. And closed doors often reveal true hearts. When you can no longer benefit someone, when you're no longer in the same place mentally, spiritually, emotionally, watch who clings and who disappears. Sometimes God closes a door to expose loyalty, and sometimes He closes a door to protect peace. Pay attention to what falls off when God elevates you. Don't run back, trying to reopen what He removed. Not every goodbye is loss. Some goodbyes are God saying, "You're growing, keep going." It's natural to feel grief when doors close. You invested time, you prayed, you believed. It mattered to you. But maturity is learning the difference between fighting for something God gave you and fighting for something God is freeing you from. If you have to force it, chase it, beg for it, or compromise yourself to keep it, that door is not grace, it's bondage. God's doors come with peace, even when they come with challenge. They come with alignment, not anxiety. The right door will not require you to lose yourself in order to enter it. If a door closed, trust it. You may not understand it yet, but hindsight will reveal what obedience can't see right now. In time, you will thank God for the doors that didn't open, the relationships that didn't last, the opportunities that didn't unfold. You will look back and realize those closed doors were the hand of a loving Father steering you into purpose, growth, and identity. Let this settle in your spirit. You don't need every door. You only need the ones God intends. And no man, no situation, no mistake can close the door God truly has for you. So wipe your tears. Stop staring at what won't reopen. Lift your head. Step forward. Another door is waiting, and this time it leads somewhere your spirit can breathe. God is not punishing you. He is preparing you. And one day you will see that the doors He closed were just as sacred as the ones He opened. Healing requires separation, not cycles. That truth stings because separation rarely feels holy at first. It feels like loss, like loneliness, like something is being taken from you rather than given to you. We talk about healing like it is peaceful and soft and full of gentle music and glowing candles, but real healing feels like tearing sometimes. It feels like God putting His hand on the very place you've been trying to protect and saying, "This can't stay the same." The hardest part about healing is not the pain you address. It's the people, habits, and environments you have to release. We get attached to what wounded us. Not because we enjoy pain, but because pain became familiar. Familiarity feels safe even when it's killing you slowly. So instead of letting God separate us, we circle back. We return to patterns that break us because they're predictable. We go back to relationships that drain us because the quiet feels scary. We revisit habits that numb us because transparency feels too loud. That is how cycles form. Not from lack of desire to change, but from fear of facing life without the things that once weakened us. But healing requires space. It requires room to rebuild, to breathe, to grow into the person God always knew you were. You cannot grow roots if you keep replanting yourself in the same soil that poisoned you. You cannot rewrite your future while rereading the same painful chapter. Sometimes God doesn't let people leave your life because they were villains. He lets them leave because you needed room to see yourself differently. Healing demands separation because cycles thrive on access. As long as the old thing has access to you, it can whisper, it can tempt, it can pull, it can remind you of who you were. That version of you may have been strong in survival mode, but survival is not the same as being whole. When God says heal, He is also saying detach. He is saying you can't stay connected to what broke you and expect to be restored. There are seasons where you can't entertain the same conversations, can't go to the same places, can't cling to the same identity. Healing is not always about the wound. Sometimes it's about what keeps reopening it. And the spiritual trap is believing you can heal while staying in the system that sickened you. You can pray all day, journal all night, read every scripture, and still stay stuck if you refuse to separate from the source of the hurt. God is not cruel when He removes people, positions, or patterns. He is merciful. He knows that attachment can delay transformation. He knows that you cannot step into new life carrying old chains. And He knows that healing is not passive, it is intentional. Separation isn't punishment, it's preparation. Sometimes God isolates you not to abandon you, but to detox you. He pulls you out so you can hear Him without interference, so you can see yourself without comparison, so you can be purified from the noise that once shaped you. You might feel lonely, but you're not alone. You're being sanctified. You're being rebuilt. You're being reintroduced to yourself without the trauma talking. Think about every time you tried to heal while staying in the same cycle. You promised you'd change, but the moment stress hit, you ran back to old comfort. You swore you were done with someone, but answered their call when you felt weak. You declared you were over an addiction, but reached for it when anxiety rose. That's not failure. That's evidence that separation is necessary. Cycles don't break by intention alone. They break by distance. Healing requires boundaries. It requires silence. It requires courage to say, I love you, but I love my future more. I value comfort, but I value freedom more. Growth means you will disappoint some people. It means some doors won't reopen. It means you can't be available in the way you once were. Healing forces you to prioritize destiny over attachment. It teaches you that peace sometimes costs relationships, habits, and identities. There is no resurrection without burial. Something has to die for the new thing to live. Your old coping mechanisms, your old validation sources, your old emotional reflexes, your old tolerance for dysfunction, they cannot come with you. Healing will require you to grieve versions of yourself you blew up just to survive. But freedom is worth the funeral. You will cry. You will doubt. You will feel like you're losing everything. But in truth, God is removing only what was hurting you, what was holding you, what was hindering you. Light cannot enter without letting darkness drain out. Sometimes healing looks like loneliness at first. But loneliness is the hallway between who you were and who you're becoming. And on the other side of that separation is clarity, peace, identity, strength, and joy that doesn't need chaos to feel alive. Don't confuse stillness with emptiness. God is filling you in ways you won't understand until you try to go back and realize nothing fits anymore. That's the sign healing is happening. When the old places lose their taste, when the old conversations bore you, when drama feels exhausting instead of exciting, when peace feels valuable instead of strange, that is separation doing its holy work. Cycles end when you choose destiny over familiarity. Healing begins when you stop trying to fix what God called you to walk away from. Trust the separation. Let God hold what you release. Your future is on the other side of your obedience, not your attachment. Keep going. You're not breaking down, you're breaking free. Destiny demands forward faith, not backward comfort. You cannot walk into a future God designed for you while holding on to the safety blanket of yesterday. Faith is movement. Faith is momentum. Faith is trusting God enough to walk even when the ground under your feet hasn't fully formed yet. And here's the thing, forward faith rarely feels comfortable. Comfort keeps you where you are. Comfort is familiar, predictable, controllable. But destiny doesn't grow in comfort zones. Destiny grows in the places where you have to stretch, where you have to breathe deeper, where you have to talk to God more, where uncertainty forces intimacy with the Holy Spirit. We love the idea of destiny until we realize it requires discomfort. We pray for purpose, but then try to drag our old patterns into the promise. We want elevation but don't want separation. We want inheritance but don't want instruction. We want God to do a new thing, but we cling to old ways. Destiny says move. Comfort says stay. Destiny says trust. Comfort says fear. Destiny says step. Comfort says remember how easy it was back there. But easy is not always holy. Easy is not always anointed. Sometimes the hardest thing you ever do is trust God enough to keep going when your past feels safer than your future. And make no mistake, backward is always going to call you when you start moving forward. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't advancing. The moment you start walking in purpose, the past starts knocking like it suddenly became valuable. Suddenly old habits look tempting. Old places feel warm. Old relationships start resurfacing, not because they're good for you, but because your movement threatens what used to control you. Destiny reveals what was disguised as comfort but was really captivity. When God calls you, He calls all of you, your faith, your obedience, your future. But He doesn't call your chains. He doesn't call your trauma identity. He doesn't call the version of you that learned to tolerate less than what He promised. You can't take Egypt with you to the promised land. You can't take survival thinking into destiny living. Forward faith says, I don't know every detail, but I know who is leading me. It says, even if it scares me, I will move. It says, I refuse to shrink back into what I outgrew just because this next step requires courage. The truth is, comfort feels like home when faith feels like work. But growth is work. Transformation is work. Rewiring your spirit, mind, and habits is work. Faith isn't about feeling brave. Faith is about moving even when you feel afraid. God didn't ask you to feel confident. He asked you to trust Him. And many people lose destiny, not because they weren't called, not because they weren't gifted, but because they would rather feel safe in a shrinking space than stretch in a growing one. Fear whispers, what if it doesn't work? Faith whispers, what if it does? And even if you stumble, even if you trip, even if you cry and question and tremble while moving forward, you are still farther ahead than you would be if you stayed stuck replaying old seasons. You don't need perfect faith. You need forward faith. Forward faith is messy. Forward faith is shaky steps and whispered prayers and learning as you go. It's surrendering your timeline, your control, your expectations, and saying, God, wherever you lead, I will follow. Sometimes obeying God means walking without applause, without validation, without people cheering for you. Sometimes it means following the voice of God over the voices of the crowd. Sometimes it means stepping into rooms you don't feel prepared for yet. Destiny will stretch you into someone new. That's why backward comfort feels easier. The past doesn't challenge you, it just repeats you. It keeps you cycling instead of climbing. It keeps you familiar instead of fruitful. There is a version of you waiting on the other side of obedience that your comfort will never meet. A healed you, a bold you, a joyful you, a disciplined you, a spiritually grounded you, a purpose-walking, God-trusting, chain-breaking you. But you can only meet that version by going forward. And yes, forward can be lonely at times. People who love the old you may not recognize the new you. Not everyone can go where you are going. Not everyone will understand the pull of destiny on your life. Some will say you changed like it's an insult. But change is evidence of God's hand, not a flaw in your identity. The you that stays loyal to your past cannot access the you God designed for your future. Every season has a grace. When grace shifts, movement must follow. Don't confuse comfort with peace. Comfort is the absence of challenge. Peace is the presence of God. And sometimes God gives peace in uncomfortable places to remind you that He is with you even when the ground is unfamiliar. If you wait to move until you feel ready, you'll look up and realize years passed while you rehearsed instead of lived. Forward faith says now, not when it's perfect, not when people understand, not when every question has an answer. Now, because destiny has a window, and you don't want to miss what God is trying to birth in you just because you preferred the safety of yesterday. Look ahead, breathe, walk, trust. Your future is not behind you. Everything God has promised, every breakthrough, every assignment, every expansion, every blessing, it's ahead. Not one miracle lives in reverse. Keep moving forward, even if it's slow, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you don't have perfect clarity. Forward is faith, backward is fear, and God has not given you the spirit of fear. Your destiny is calling. Lean in, step forward, don't go back, keep going. You've walked through a lot in this message. Deliverance, nostalgia, closed doors, separation, forward faith, all of it pointing to one truth. God didn't bring you out to abandon you. He brought you out to advance you. And yes, there will be moments when the past feels tempting, when comfort feels easier than courage, when the familiar calls your name like it still belongs to you. But hear this deep in your spirit. You survived that place, you don't owe it residency. You learn from that season, you don't have to repeat it. You cried through that chapter, you don't need to keep rereading it. God has been too faithful, too intentional, too strategic with your life for you to circle back to what He already broke off you. You are not the same person who cried for deliverance. You are growing, you are waking up, you are stepping into identity, clarity, purpose. The chains you once called comfort no longer fit. And when the enemy tries to whisper, go back, lift your head and let your spirit respond. I'm moving forward because God pulled me out for a reason. You are not going back to who you were, where you were, or what you settled for. Your future is bigger than your fear. Your destiny is stronger than your doubt. And the God who called you out is the same God who will carry you through and bring you into promise. So hold your ground. Lift your faith. Wipe your tears if you need to, but don't you dare retreat. Forward is where your story unfolds. Forward is where your freedom breathes. Forward is where God is waiting. Your past had a purpose, but it does not have permission to lead you anymore. You're done going back. You're stepping into what's next, and heaven is cheering you on. Keep moving. God pulled you out. Now walk like you're free.